Scream 3, let's get into this. This is a movie that I remember watching it when I did watch it last time, and I remember it lacking everything, story, characters, like screenplay, direction, like kills, like everything that makes up a great slasher movie. This movie lacks. I think the only passable thing in this movie, I think, are the characters. Like Sydney's back, and I like that. There's kind of a cool story with her and her mother in this one where she's seeing her mother like as a ghost, but that story doesn't really go anywhere. That's a story that I just like. It does add like another layer to her character from what we already know about Sydney Prescott in the first two movies. But I just feel like just that story alone in this movie, I just don't think it goes anywhere. Like, there's a few sequences in this movie where we see her mother, knocking on the window or sing or her mum, whistling, and just like those scenes just don't go anywhere in this movie. Like, there's no payoff to them. And like, I can see why they're there, but I feel like it doesn't really add anything to the central plot of this movie. But anyways, yeah, putting that aside, I did give this movie another rewatch, just to see if my thoughts have changed on this movie, if I like it a bit more, if I still feel the same about it, or if I think this movie is dreadfully bad. Where do I lay on that? Let's get into it. So, Scream 3. So this is a movie I still feel the same about. Like, I think this is easily the weakest installment in the Scream franchise. And I don't necessarily blame it on Wes Craven, because from the behind the scenes stories that I've read about how the script was being written as they were filming. The writers were going to the set like daily, and they were writing it like as they were doing takes, or they would write it the previous night before going to set with no consistent flow to this screenplay. And I would have much rather Wes Craven's original script idea. Like, I've read up on that, and I love that idea. If there is an original screenplay of this movie out there, I would love to read it. Wes Craven was going to bring back Stu, and he was going to be the big bad guy who's going to be the one pulling the strings the entire time. And I think that is such a bonkers idea, because Stu died in the first movie. Like, he got stabbed multiple times, and then he got like the TV dropped on his face. Like, how is this guy alive? So technically, Wes Craven, if he was to bring him back, he's not dead, so he could easily come back in Scream 5, and there have been those rumors floating around on the internet. Is Stu still alive? Is Stu going to be in the upcoming Scream 5? And even the actor who plays Stu says don't believe everything you read. So even he thinks Stu is still alive. So there's still that possibility of the return of a Stu, and I feel like that idea for Scream 3, that original idea, I feel like would have been a much better idea than the idea that is presented to us here in the Scream 3 that we got. While I'm not going to trash this story and this concept, because I think it has potential, like where they're filming like a new stab movie, and Ghostface is killing off like all the characters as they are being killed off, like in the script. So it's a movie within a movie. I think that's an idea that has potential, and I think for how it's presented and how it's utilized here, I think is fine. Like, I think it's passable. I think they do their best to keep a flow and to keep like somewhat of a story in the messy production that this movie did have. I think the story, like, this story could have gone like 100 times worse, but I think there is definitely still a sense of a story here. There is still definitely a sense of a character. So now switching over topic, let's talk about the kills in Scream 3 because this is one of the areas where this movie lacks, which if you're making a slasher movie, no, you cannot lack in the gore. You have to show your kills. If you're making a slasher movie, like if you aren't going to have a good story or good characters, like gore is always a must in a slasher movie. Like you have to have those brutal on-screen kills, which which there's a more like on the Blu-ray of this movie, there's a more brutal opening kill, like to the one that's in this movie, which the one on the Blu-ray I think is so much better than the one that's in the movie. Like the opening 5 minutes of this movie, while it's not bad, like that does come into play later on in the movie. But the opening 5 minutes, while I would say that is my favorite part of this movie because I honestly don't remember much of what happens after the title. I don't think there is really one like memorable kill in this entire movie. Like all of the kills like are very cutty, if that's even a word. Where it's just like all of, like the way the kill scenes like are edited, like it's there's there's nowhere near the energy that was in the first two movies, and you can definitely tell that coming to this third movie that the energy definitely does lack in the direction here, like in the kill scenes, but then also in other new concepts that this movie introduces. So I have a question for the makeup artist who were working on this film. What on earth is with Gale Weathers' hair? Because, wow, that is an awful look. That is an awful look for her character. Another thing I hate about this movie is the ending. The ending is the one thing in this movie that pisses me off the most, because we find out that Roman is the killer, which he got killed off in the first 5 minutes of this movie. And here's my problem with the killer reveal in this movie: his name is never mentioned or said like ever again throughout the movie. He's never seen again. And then when he comes back at the end to reveal that he is Ghostface, like there's no shock factor there. And then when he's explaining like why he's Ghostface, like it's just like it's a little too late at that point. I mean, because his character has like less than 5 minutes of screen time in this movie. So how are we as the viewer supposed to believe what he's saying at the end when none of that was even mentioned? Like he doesn't even have a character in this movie. Like sure, he's this big like Hollywood actor at the beginning of this movie, sure, but that's the minimal of characterization he is given. And then all of this other bullshit that he's talking about at the ending of this movie, like there's no hint of that. Like what we never see that. So how are we supposed to believe it? And just that just goes back to what I was saying. Like the review in this movie, I think, is so lackluster. It's not earned. It doesn't feel shocking, and it's a very bland and mediocre reveal in this franchise. Positive I can say about this movie, like this movie isn't dreadful. It's entertainingly bad, but yeah. Speaking of stuff I still did like in this movie, there is quite a bit of intensity. There are some really cool killer chase scenes, like as the mansion in the third act of this movie. Like I thought that entire segment or portion of Scream 3 I really enjoyed. I think at the end of the day, Scream 3 is the weakest entry in this franchise. I don't think it's a bad movie by any means. But it's from what comes after this and what came before it in the first two movies. Like this film is a step down, but it's still mildly entertaining, and it's a movie I can still watch, but it doesn't feel as completed or as earned as Scream 4 does. So anyways guys, that's my review on Scream 3. If you have seen Scream 3, let me know down in the comments, what did you think of it? Did you like it? Did you think it was melting? Did you really not like it? And let me know all your thoughts and opinions down in the comment section down below. So anyways guys, I hope you have a good rest of your day, evening or night, wherever you are, and I'll see you in the next video. Alright, bye.